fellows, on the Training and Impact team, there's a question we've been asking ourselves a lot. What is transformational impact for our kids, and how do we make it happen for all of them? Those two questions really are at the core of what the transformational impact journey learning loop is all about. So the TIJ process is really built around the bright spot theory. So our first phase is about identifying our bright spots. This is the time when we want all of you to send us artifacts and to send us information that will give us visibility into what are the outcomes in your classrooms and what are things you're doing to enable those. The second phase of our process is about inquiring about our bright spots. So once we've identified which are the classrooms that are having transformational outcomes, we want to really be able to go deeper and study those classrooms to identify what's different about them, what's unique about them, what is this teacher doing, what is the ecosystem doing. And then the third stage is really about closing that loop. So once we've identified and learned from the bright spot, our job really is to figure out now, how do we replicate this? How do we make this possible for all of our children across Teach for India and beyond? So in the first phase, identifying our bright spots, a big reflection we had is that the person who knows the outcomes of the classroom and the kids the most is the fellow. So really this stage is about you fellows helping us understand what are the outcomes that you and your kids have achieved and what's enabled that. So whatever profiles you send us, we're going to have them from Bombay, from Pune, from Delhi, from all of our 7 cities, and we're going to mix them up and send them back to different city teams. That's going to give us a chance to really look at nationally across all of our classrooms, which are those classrooms that are really pushing our bar for significant outcomes. When we find those classrooms, those are the ones we want to take forward into a second round of deeper inquiry and deeper study. Something we tried last year was we actually brought together 14 of our fellows to talk about their classrooms and to explain to us what was going on, not just within the 4 walls of their classroom, but also in the ecosystem around. So the second stage about inquiring into our bright spot is really an opportunity for our teams, training, city, you as a fellow, your kids, your school team, to come together and really help us get a clear, holistic picture of practices that have enabled outcomes, of conditions that have enabled outcomes, as well as what are some of the practices and conditions that may have inhibited outcomes. Once we've codified these practices, there's a few things we want to do. Number one is we've created profiles for each of the fellows and classrooms that we captured last year and tried to really be specific about what practices in each of these classrooms have pushed outcomes. Another way we've tried to codify learning is by really working on a report that lists very specific practices that are differentiating some classrooms and some outcomes from others. This year we want to add a few things to this stage called closing the loop. Specifically, we're thinking about how do we take our learnings from the TIJ process and make shifts at institute from that. We're also thinking about how do we take these learnings and work with city teams to then understand how they can incorporate it back into the program strategy. Knowing that our contexts are different, closing the loop is going to be a big area of focus for us this year. I've had this beautiful privilege of being able to go across our country, across each of our cities, and see many, many different classrooms. And as I went from city to city and classroom to classroom, it made me realize a few things. All of our kids need awareness, academics, values, exposure, but their contexts and their challenges are different everywhere. Education is a complex problem, and there's very few practices that can be universally applied. They can be when we understand the context. This bright spot study is really a way for us to understand what are those practices that are working in giving kids an excellent education everywhere, and how do we understand and work within diverse contexts to make it possible. Look at the reflective guide we've sent you and begin to think about those outcomes that you and your kids have achieved this year. Engage in that reflective process with yourself, with your peers, with your LC, and if you feel like your classroom, your children have really pushed the bar this year and can push our organization's bar this year of what's possible, Please fill up that reflective guide, send us your artifacts, show us the magic that you've made come alive in your classrooms. We are waiting to learn from you.